All right, welcome people. Got a few people on already. Let me see. Add to the broadcast. Here you go. Jim S. Love the teaser at lunch today. That was good, wasn't it? It was a quick hit. Like I said, somebody canceled, so I figured why not jump online. T. Tarantello. Bring it V. I'll do my best, man. Vegas, always welcome in the house. And there's my man, Herb Walsh. Yeah, you saw that thing I put up on SpaceX, right? It's pretty cool. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but Elon Musk has I think launched like 500 satellites. So this summer he's going to do a beta test. Whoever wants to use. Essentially, the principle is obviously create a global satellite Wi-Fi system. And so I signed up for the beta test. So anyway, look it up. Anybody can sign up for the beta test. I think it's going to be cool, man. And they should have used the music. You're right. Let me see. RV reviews by Air Force. Looking forward to another informative show. We'll do my best to keep you informed. Thanks for tossing up the music title. There it is. Hey, mi hermano. Pleasure, man. Hello. Forever's back. Tony. All right. Love the countdown music. Actually, my son wrote that music. So Lumera Music is actually my son, by the way. So he writes music, and I cop his music because I don't have to pay any royalties or copyright stuff. You know what I mean? Take advantage of your kids. That's what I say. Learn from the best. That's why we're here, man. Thank you. Cool, man. Milwaukee in the house. And there he is, my man, Victor Tad. Love it. Doug Lehman, always representing in layman's term, Mr. Video Marketing Dude. Check out layman's terms at DougLehman.com. Cool dude, video. If you need great video, that's the guy to talk to. Hello from San Francisco. Houston in his house. Love it. Mia Knox. Hey, you're back, Mia. Way to go. And Wyoming, Joshua Marquez, man. Thank you for joining me. All right, so shall we jump into this thing? Hey, so people always ask me about books. Before I just launch into this, because I know I'll forget once I launch into it. So what I'm going to do is every week I'm going to recommend a book, but I'm going to qualify why I recommend the book. So this week, the book I'm going to recommend. Now this book, for those of you who know me, let me explain my bookshelf. If you come to my office downstairs, I got an office, right? And you look at my bookshelf, I have the smallest bookshelf in the world. Why? Because I don't believe in quantity, I believe in quality. So every 6 months, I purge my bookshelf. Like literally, I go through my bookshelf and says, all right, which one's made it, which one's not. Because I believe that you should only keep books that really serve what you need at the moment, right? And the best of the best, obviously. And so I keep the best of the best books in my bookshelf. That's why I call it the golden bookshelf, because like I said, I only keep the best. And I only have like 3 layers, 3 shelves. And so I always tighten it up, so to speak, and only keep the best of the best. So I want to recommend a book. And the only people that should buy this book, this is one of my favorite books, and this was actually written, believe it or not, in 1993, but it is gold. If you want to understand the psychology of decision-making, like really get into the psychology of decision-making, this is one of the best books I've found out there. It's called, let me see if I can kind of come in on this one. Boom. The Psychology of Judgment and Decision-Making. And so this is a great book. Again, only buy this if you're interested in, that type of information where you want to learn about decision-making psychology. And it talks about, heuristics, different biases and things. But if you're interested in how people make decisions, this is it. And by the way, does it help for selling? Of course it does. And so good stuff. So anyway, that's going to be my book of the evening I'm going to recommend. So get the book. Again, it was written in 93, but I've gone back to that book twice. And I actually picked this up. I always date when I got the book. I got this book like 10 years ago. That's how long it's been on my shelf. 10 years. The date to be exact, I always mark my date. In case you guys want to see what I do to all my books, besides scar them up pretty bad, what I do is always date my books right there, right? And so this one is March 5th, 2010, man. That's how good that book is. I still keep it around, man. All right, cool. Who's the author? Great question. I should actually point that out. Scott Plous. And so it's Scott Plous. Like I said, only get this if this is not about selling strategies, It's really about decision making. And if you think about it, right? Isn't that what we're trying to help our customers with? Trying to make a buying decision. So it has some great context. If you don't have a base understanding of true, what I call influence and persuasion, or cognitive behavior, that is a great book to start with. So believe it or not, a lot of books that were written, I think, in the 1990s and maybe early 2000s really have, I consider, some of the best material because they're very well researched. Today, anybody can write a book. So the content, it's hard to find really good books. I'm not saying it's impossible, but finding a good, rich book, ugh. But I'll recommend one that I just found in my next one that I think you're really going to love. So anyway, if you guys hung around, by the way, Jared's in the house. I got to give a high five to my man from Trinidad and Tobago. Great sales guy, out there training, doing his thing, man. Good to have you on board. Now, the last event I did, the last live session I did was we talked about, I think I talked about sales strategies, right? And if you remember, I walked you through a whole process of a sales strategy. One was the beginning. Let me just go through a quick review. When I talked about sales strategy, I said the first thing you have to do is figure out, obviously, what product or service you're going to sell. And then we talked about what market you should sell into. And then we talked about the total addressable market. In other words, how big that market is. And then we talked about who's your ideal client profile, who you're selling to. And pretty much we left it at that. We defined this a lot. We played with that a lot. And basically, if you know what you're selling, where your market is, how big your market is, who you're selling to, that is the beginning of a great sales strategy, because if you know who you're selling to within what market, you can aim your marketing at that, right? So that's it. So let's say you're a small business owner and you're putting together a sales strategy. It should look something like this. But now that you've put together a sales strategy, I want to go to step 2. And step 2 is, how do you get people to buy into your sales strategy? Because I think this is something most people don't really talk about, right? When you see sales training, we don't talk about how do you get buy-in. And so I know that I wrote on the title, I put shared sales vision, right? That's what I put down. But what I really want to talk about, what's really underlying this, which I think is important, is how do you get buy-in? Isn't that interesting? Because if you think about it, if you're a leader in any organization and you're managing people, you have to get buy-in. When you're selling, you have to get buy-in. Everything is selling, right? So if you have a new sales strategy, how do you get people to buy in? How do you get people to move in the same direction? So again, if we go back to step 1 here, and we say, okay, this is our new strategy. This is what we want to try to implement. This is a new sales, for example, got the product, we know what market, we know how big it is, we know who our client profile is. Let's implement some new sales processes and strategies to go after the market. But how do you get people to buy into that so they accept it? And again, it's no different when you're talking to your clients, right? You're trying to get them to buy in. So let's talk about buy-in. How do you get that shared sales vision? Not complicated, and then I'll take questions from you guys, okay? So when I look at a shared sales vision, I go back to my days as being a leader or manager. So for a quick summary, just to give you a background of how I led sales teams, I started out as an engineer. For some of you already know the story, so I'll go real quickly. Started out as an electrical engineer, got into software development, did product development, designed wireless systems, worked with a lot of technology, built large systems, right? And so I also managed large sales force. I was director of sales, and then I became VP of sales, then president of sales and marketing. Then I was CEO of a high technology company out of Christiansburg, Virginia, if you know where that's at, right outside of Roanoke, where we sold satellite transponder equipment. And so during that time, I remember thinking, how do you get people to buy into what you're trying to do, especially if you're trying to shift strategy, right? So the first thing we have to ask ourselves, if we're putting forward a strategy, how do we get people to buy in? So I wrote some notes because I don't want to forget. But let's be real basic about this. When you're trying to get people to change, you have to ask your basic 3 whys, because that's what they're going to ask. Your team is going to ask you the first question. You come up with a new strategy. Here's where we're going. And they're going to say, the first why you're going to get. To me, these are the 3 crucial whys. And by the way, where did I get this whole why thing? If you've ever read the book called The Toyota Way, which is how Toyota became a manufacturing powerhouse, is that they have something called the 5 whys. The 5 whys means you keep asking why until you get to the root cause of whatever situation or problem you're trying to solve. So that's kind of where I got the concept. The first question people are going to ask is, well, why do we have to change? Because nobody likes to change. Even as you're selling a product, forget management for a second. Let's say you're selling a product. You're trying to pitch a client, and the customer is saying, well, why change? We're doing okay, why change? So they need some type of, and let's just put this under, they need some type of motivation. And that's what every presentation should have, whether you're selling to a customer or whether you're selling to your team. And by the way, let's take a step back. If you're a leader and you're trying to run an organization, can we both agree that you sell, first of all, you're selling three ways. You sell down, by that I mean to your organization. If you're a manager, you're going to sell your sales team on a strategy. Now, if again, you're within a company, you probably have peers, so you probably have to sell this way, right? But more importantly, you have to sell what? That way, which means you have to sell to upper management. So we're always selling, and people are always going to say, if you want to make changes in your organization, but why change? And they're trying to understand what is your motivation. And second to why change, they're going to ask you the second question, which is what? Well, why now? Why do we have to do that now? Right? And here's where you have to create a what? A sense of urgency. Right? So you have to create a sense of urgency. Now, let's say that I've convinced you that we need to change. And I'm going to give you a specific example in just a bit. And then I have to convince you that we have to do this what? Now. And then even if you convince them of those two things, the third hurdle is always like the famous why this. The why this is, I think, the toughest one. The why this is why this strategy. Why are we trying to implement this strategy? So again, why change? Why do we have to change? Nobody wants to change. Second, again, why do we have to do it now? And last but not least is why this? Why do we have to use this strategy? So let's walk through this slowly. And again, if you're trying to figure out how to use this, keep this in mind that even if you're not in management, when you're talking to a client, they're asking themselves the same question because clients don't like to switch. Clients don't like to change. And then you're coming in there. Remember, we're change agents. As salespeople, we are people who come in and want to change things because that's what selling is. You're doing it a certain way. I am here to change that, to help you do it better. We're change agents. So the first question they're going to ask is why change? And you better have a good argument why they should change, right? The second is why do it now? And then why this? Or more specifically, why you? So again, this to me is the ultimate change formula. If you can figure this storyline out in your presentation, then it's powerful. Now, let me ask you a question. In your presentations today, do you have these three components when you're trying to convince a buyer or your management team or your salespeople to change? Because I had to suffer through this. I really had to suffer through this. When I had to get people to change, it's always very difficult because most people want to hold on to the past, what they're comfortable with. Have you ever thought about the fact that most people simply just want to hold on? Even if they're not making a lot of money, they just want to be comfortable. So let's go through the why change. Let's begin with the why change. When you're trying to give somebody to change, you need to give them a good reason. You remember the story? I tell the story on stage a lot about the hound dog. If you heard the story, just bear with me. If you haven't heard the story, just hang in there, right? So it's a story about a man. And I heard this from, and I believe it was Zig Ziglar that told the story. And I just kind of added my little spin to it. And I talk about, there's a man walking down the road. He's walking down this road for a very long time, right? He's walking down the road, and in the distance, he's thirsty. He sees a farmhouse. He decides to go to the farmhouse, see if he can get a drink of water. He approaches the farmhouse. On the front porch, there's an old man in a rocking chair, just rocking back and forth. Just rocking back and forth. And right next to him, laying on the ground, is a big old nasty hound dog making this sound, going, "Brrr," right? Now, the stranger doesn't say anything, but he approaches the old man and says, "Excuse me, sir. Been walking for a long time. Can I have a drink of water?" Old man says, "Sure." Goes inside the house to get a drink of water. In the meantime, the stranger's standing there watching this big old hound dog just laying there going, "Brrr." So he kind of looks at him like that's kind of weird. Old man comes out, hands the stranger the glass of water. They're having polite conversation now. But in the background, all you hear is, "Brrr, brrr." Finally, the stranger can't take it anymore. He has to ask. Says, "Excuse me, sir, but why is your dog making that sound?" And the old man looks at the dog, looks back at the stranger, and like this. As a matter of fact, he says, "Man, that dog is laying on a tack, like a little nail." The stranger doesn't know what to say, so he just keeps drinking water and having conversation. But in the background, it's just, "Roar," it's getting louder. So finally, the stranger says, "I got to ask the follow-up question. Excuse me, sir, but if the dog is sitting on a tack, why doesn't it get up?" Again, the old man looks at the dog, looks back at the stranger, says, "Son, you don't understand. The tack hurts the dog, but not enough to want to make him get up." The tack hurts the dog, but not enough to want to make him get up. And if you think about it, what is our job as change agents? Our job is to grow the tack. Sorry, that's the best visual I have. Now, what does that mean? If this is the hound dog, and I know I can't draw a dog, but that's it. If that's the hound dog, right, and it's sitting on a tack, The tack is uncomfortable. The tack is uncomfortable, right? So this thing will just go, it'll just lay there, right? So what is our job? The only way to get this dog to stand up is to what? Is to grow the tack. And what do I mean by grow the tack? When somebody says, why change? Because most people don't want to change. They just want to sit there and go, "Arr." Look, you and I know people who all they do every time you talk to them is complain about life. They complain about their job. They complain about their sales. They complain about their company. They complain about the product. And all they're doing is going, "Arr." That's all they're doing, right? So keep in mind that your sales team, if they don't want to change, when you're coming with a plan and they're like, well, why change? Keep in mind that they're probably not even happy with what they're currently doing or how it's currently being done. But when the thought of change comes to mind, they'd rather just lay there and go, don't change it. We don't need another strategy. So our job is to grow this by saying, why change? Because we're losing money, right? So that could be the first thing. We're losing money or we're losing market share. The second to why change, again, is why now? Well, why now could be tied back into the same thing. We're losing money, we're losing market share, and if we don't turn things around, things are going to go south very quickly, right? And then the last part is, obviously, why this? This is the toughest part. Let's handle the why this, because this is where you have to come up with a great strategy, and you have to be able to explain that strategy in a clear, and I know I'm repeating myself in this case, a concise, and then this is how you explain it, clearly and concisely, but you have to be consistent. Now, let me tell you why all these three things matter in explaining a strategy to people. All three things matter. You first have to give them an idea of what you're doing, of what you want to do. Do you remember when we did my the live stream about 3 live streams ago? And I said, there's 4 ways to grow your business. And if you don't remember this, go back to one of my live streams. I said you can go out and gain new clients. Remember that? Gain new clients. Let me zoom in on the board for you. I said you can gain new clients, you can retain clients, and then you can grow your existing clients, which means you can upsell and cross-sell. And then I said you can reactivate. In other words, go touch clients that haven't bought, let's say, in a year or so. So these are 4 strategies. And what your salespeople, for example, want from you is they want to know what's the clear strategy. So what I would do is, if I'm, again, trying to sell this, one of the things I'm doing is saying, you know what? Here's our strategy. Our strategy is to what? Retain our existing clients, or maybe even grow. Let's go with grow. I like grow better. Let's try to grow our existing clients. In other words, let's try to figure out, how do we sell more to our existing clients? How do we do that? How do we sell more? So now imagine if you are a manager and you go to your team and say, let me tell you what we're going to do. For the next 6 months, we're going to focus on one single strategy, and that is growing our existing business. Because studies have shown that if I can actually focus on growing my existing business, I can increase my revenue by up to 30%. I'm very clear and concise in my strategy. We are going to what? Go after existing business, people who've bought from us in the past, and we're going to what? Upsell them, grow that business. Now we have a clear strategy. It's clear, it's concise, everybody gets it. Now, the thing you don't want to do is, after 1 month, is you change the strategy and you flip a strategy. I mean, this is basic stuff you already know. But it's amazing to me how often we do that to our people. We do something for a month or 2, and then we decide to switch strategies, and then people get frustrated because they think you're just what? Jumping the rails on a different strategy. Does that make sense? Hit me up if you know what I'm talking about. Is this resonating with you, or am I just talking in the air? So let me go. I lost a lot of questions here, by the way. Let me see. Oh, man, you guys had a lot of questions. Do we need to fear? So this is the first question. All right. Let me have some fun. Let me go through some questions here, because you guys are adding questions like, do we need fear to create urgency? No, I don't think you need fear, because sometimes, fear, the thing is, fear might paralyze people and not wanting to do anything. You want to create a sense of urgency where, like, I have to get that. So you can do it with fear, right? But you can also do it with gain. So there's gain and pain, right? There's also those 2 things. So keep that in mind. How to know when to create fear and when to have confirmation or confidence building conversations. Oh, what a beautiful way of phrasing that one. It was similar to what, I guess what Rajiv just asked. Because what you want to do is, you have to be careful that you don't create so much fear, because that comes across as being very manipulative. So for example, if I'm having a conversation with salespeople, right? One of the conversations I had to have is that the company expected revenues to grow, let's say, I'm going to say to 30 million, right? And let's say that we fell short and we were only at 20 million, right? Let's just say that that was my conversation with my boss, right? And then so I'm going to talk to my sales force. I said, look, we had a delta of $10 million. And then we're all big people, grown-ups here. I wouldn't put fear in them. I would just use the word implications. In other words, unless we change our strategy to try to close this gap, several things are going to happen. You can call it fear. I like to call it implication. One is that we'll probably lose some resources in terms of dollars. That'll probably go down, which means that'll probably mean a headcount reduction if we don't change. That'll also mean, let's say, whatever impact it may be. I said that's the reality of what happens if we don't figure out how this strategy is going to work. So I'm not fear-mongering. I'm not trying to scare them. I'm just trying to highlight the reality of what we had to do. And this has happened to be many cases where I've had to have this hard conversation with my team that says, this is the situation. When I was a software product manager, we were developing a product that wasn't growing as fast as we wanted to. I had I think 7 engineers under me, software engineers, and they were complaining that there was too much work, so to speak. And I said, look, I know you're engineers, you're focused on the actual coding. I get that. I had to show them the numbers, but then I did something interesting. I took my whole software development team, literally I took the whole group with me to a top-level management meeting. And I literally said, sit in the back and listen to what conversations we're having by business unit. And when they got to my business unit, which they were part of, I had to explain why my numbers weren't there. And it was interesting because after the meeting, their brain just shifted because they now looked beyond the code and they saw it from my perspective, the pressure I was under as a product manager to grow revenues. And all of a sudden, I got a whole team, literally, the whole team was on board. What can we do to grow this? Because they understood the implications that if we don't make some certain changes, we don't do it now, certain things are going to happen and certain things could go south. But for me, I took a chance bringing them in other words, showing them the ugly stuff. I had always, shielded them from that. But when they saw these conversations I was having with senior management about pricing, profit, margins, and so forth, they got it. And believe it or not, I got their buy-in because they saw it from another perspective. So anyway, I don't know if that helps with the, Krishna, I don't know if that helps with your answer, but that's the best answer I got for that one, man. The most expensive word in business. We've always done it that way. If you don't believe it, ask Blockbuster, right, or Sears, right? So in other words, if people are used to doing things a certain way, it reminds me of the story of the 5 monkeys. You ever hear the story of the 5 monkeys? Can I borrow you the 5 monkeys? I talk dogs, might as well throw monkeys in there, right? And Jim, you probably heard the story. There's a story about 5 monkeys, right? They put 5 monkeys in a room. In the middle of the room, there's a ladder, right? So if you can imagine 5 monkeys, right? In the middle of the room, there's a ladder. Top of the ladder is hanging a banana, right? That's it. That's my visual for you. That's as best as I can draw, right? And so what happens is that every time the monkeys got near the actual ladder, what would happen is they blast them with a hose of water. They just blast them with water. So after a while, the monkeys never got near the ladder. They just learned not to get near the ladder. Here's what's interesting, is that what happened then is that they took out one of the monkeys that always got blasted with water, right? One of the 5 monkeys. They took one of them out and they put a new monkey in. They put a new monkey in, right? Now, what's interesting is that when they put the new monkey in the room, who never got blasted with water, what happened is every time this new monkey got near the ladder, these 4 monkeys would jump on that one monkey and beat the crap out of it, right? Because they're like, don't go near the ladder. So after a while, the blue monkey, let's call it the blue monkey, learned not to go near the ladder. They did it again. They replaced the red one with another blue one. And every time that new blue one went near the ladder, these 3 monkeys beat the crap out of it. And also this one just jumped in also, said, hey, that's what they're doing, let's beat them. So eventually they replaced all 5 monkeys. And all 5 monkeys were afraid to actually go near the ladder. Now, if you were to interview these 5 monkeys and say, why don't you go near the ladder to grab the banana? They couldn't tell you why. All they could tell you is, to what Jim says, We've always done it that way. We've never gone near the ladder. We don't know why, but we know not to go near the ladder. None of these have ever experienced the actual blasting of the water. They just followed, again, that group mindset. And so a lot of companies are like that. They just don't know why they're doing what they're doing. So anyway, Victor, you should do a podcast with Brad Lee. I like Brad Lee. I know Brad Lee. I haven't done a podcast with him yet. So Brad Lee has... by the way, I think he's CEO. I think he's CEO of a company called Lightspeed VT, which is a learning management platform, which is a great platform. So if you go to lsvt.com, which I think Lightspeed VT, check out. If you're looking for a good learning management platform, check him out. Bradley, good dude, man. Good dude. You have so much. I appreciate that, man. My man, Eric, great stuff as always, VA. Catch the rest on the replay. Thank you for stopping by, Eric. Appreciate that, man. Yes, I love the dog analogy. Coach him up. I have to steal this one. So applicable, cool. Krishnan, one. Thank you. Yes, got it. Okay, on the money, Mike Janice. Let me see. This is an interesting one. So let me make sure I got this one. By the way, I don't know if I bored you with that monkey story, but I think it's a cool story. I think you hit the nail on the head. Too many times we change the strategy because we are searching for the perfect one. There it is, Jenna, right? We keep switching things up. And it's almost like when we do that, we lose face with our team because they're like, wait a minute, we're switching again. And so, by the way, we're not, and I think we both agree that it's always about adjusting. So great questions from Dave Murphy. Thank you for your input. Felix was on again with you. Victor A. Gracias y bendiciones. You are welcome. Thank you, Felix. Appreciate la bendiciones. You can't change their mind without new info. Interesting, right? And by the way, that is such a simple statement, but a powerful statement, Jim, right? Because unless you can't tell somebody, don't think that way. You have to replace that thought with something that's better that they buy into. So I love the way you actually said that, though. How do you handle a strategy that is simply add more salespeople? So let's talk strategy again. So if it's add more salespeople, I think we have to be careful because sometimes we think, Mike, that throwing bodies at a problem is the solution, why we're not selling. And I've seen this time and time again, that we think adding bodies is the solution, when many times it's more about the strategy that's wrong and how we're approaching the market. Product set could be off, but let's assume the product set is correct. Then really it's our marketing strategy and how we sell. And so when people say throw more bodies at it, well, we got new problems, right? Because when you're throwing more bodies at it, how do we train all these people and scale them up? Depending on what product you're selling, Mike, tell me if you agree. I think you were doing the engineering security systems, right? When you bring a new salesperson on board, we talked about this before, that there's something called time to value. Time to value means they can actually become very useful. So that number, that time could be this long before they actually become very useful. And sometimes this number could be 3 to 6 months, right? So adding new bodies, again, that's a tough one because sometimes it takes them a while to ramp up. Now, we also talked about in the past that one of the things you can do to shrink this time to get them to value faster is to have an onboarding program, right? Have some type of onboarding sales program, 1D. But the reality is, numbers vary, but I believe this number to be true. 1/3 of companies have a sales process, 2/3 don't. Said another way, 33% of companies actually have a sales process, 67% don't have a sales process. They're just guessing. And if they don't have a sales process, I can almost imagine they really don't have a strategy as well. So I don't know if I answered your question there, Mike, but that's a tough one, man. Because again, throwing bodies at a problem is never a way of doing it. Thanks, VA, for the beautiful explanation. A follow-up question to the previous one. What do you got? In B2C sales, when is the appropriate time to reflect the requirements of the customer as realistic or unrealistic? In a B2C sale, when is the appropriate time to reflect the requirements of the customer as realistic? So in other words, you got to break bad news to them because they're unrealistic in terms of what they want. I think that's it, Krishnan. So hit me back with the clarification. But if that's what you mean, look, man, it's like in B2C, for example, I don't know, what would be a good B2C example? Somebody comes in to buy a television and wants to do certain things with it, or comes in to buy a computer. The thing is, you have to frame the conversation initially. I always believe that too often we wait for the customer to give us a lot of information of what they want But what I typically say is, and I believe in the challenger sale, this is what I love about the book, The Challenger Sale, is that you got to take control of the conversation by asking questions, because asking questions allows you to guide people, their mindset. Do you know what I mean? It allows you to guide how they think. You know, and I always use this example. I'm going to prove this to you, Krishna, that if you can ask the right questions up front, you can guide and manage their expectations. So let's do an exercise. Can we do an exercise? I don't know if this is going to work, but let's you and I do an exercise right now. Okay, are you ready to do an exercise with me? I hope so. And this exercise is about just questions, right? So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to write something down here. Let's see if this works. I've never done this live, so this could work, and I could be a hero, or it could not work, and it'll be a dud, and I'll look pretty silly. So here's what I want you to do. Follow along with me. If you've done this exercise with me before, again, if you've gone to one of my events, don't jump in. If you've never done this, hang in there with me. So if you know the answer, don't say anything, okay? Now, don't type anything in. This is what I want you to do on paper. Just do this on paper. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to pick a number between 2 and 10. Pick a number. Again, don't type it in the chat. Pick a number between 2 and 10. Pick a number between 2 and 10. Just trust me on this one. Go with me on the exercise. Again, don't type anything into the chat. All right? Now, do you have your number? I hope you do. Now, take that number and multiply it by 9. Okay? So step number 1, pick a number. So pick a number between 2 and 10, right? You did that. Now multiply it by 9, right? Now you'll have a 2-digit number. Okay? So you should have a 2-digit number. By that I mean you should have a 2-digit number like that. Got a 2-digit number. What I want you to do, again, don't type anything in the chat. I want you to add these 2 digits together. Just add the 2 digits together. You should now have a single-digit number. Do you have that? Great. Now do me a favor. Subtract 5 from that number. You should have a new, minus 5, you should have a new single-digit number right here. Now, again, don't type anything in the chat. You got your number, right? Right? You subtracted 5, you got your number. Now, that number represents a letter in the alphabet. Again, don't type it in the chat. So if you have 1, that's A, 2, B, 3, C, 4, D, 5, E. Write the letter down. Just write the letter down. Just write the letter down. You got the letter? Perfect, beautiful. Now, do me a favor. Think of a European country. Think of a European country that begins with that letter. Write that country down. Just write that country down. Got it? Perfect. Now, do me another favor. Look at the country name. Look at the second letter in the country name. Look at the second letter in that country name. Do you got the letter? Great. Now, think of a large mammal. I want you to think of a large mammal that begins with that letter. Write that mammal down. What animal, which large animal begins with that letter? Now, last question. Write the color of that mammal down. What's the color of that mammal? Okay? You guys with me? All right, now, if I did this right, tell me if this makes sense. If you got the following answer, tell me if this makes sense. There are no gray elephants in Denmark. Did you guys get that? Who got that? Who got that? I want to know who got that. Okay? Who got that? Give me a 1 if you got that, man. Donkey! I don't think it's a large land mammal, but I like that. Me, Nick Chow, got it. Forgot how that works. Great. Jim S. got it. Okay, so some of you got it. Jenna got it. Beautiful. And so it's, by the way, it's a cheap parlor trick. It's a cheap trick. But here's the thing. It's a cheap trick. Colored chocolate. I have not, I guess. Mike Janice, all right, thumbs up. All right. Now, the only reason I like this silly example, it's a silly example, but what it highlights is that if you ask the right questions, I can guide people to the answer I want. So my point, Krishnan, was when you're asking questions, you can actually guide conversations. Let's go back to the topic of the day, shared vision. if somebody says, Victor, why change? Why should I change, right? And they go, why should I change? Instead of trying to explain sometimes, why don't you just ask questions? I said, for example, if Krishnan, you said to me, Victor, why should we change? I would say something like this. I said, Krishnan, what would happen if we didn't change over the next 6 months? What do you think would happen? I don't know. Well, first question, do you think we'd lose market share? Probably. And if we lost market share, how would that impact our profitability? And then if that impacted our profitability, what do you think you would do if you were in my position in order to become profitable? Now notice what I'm doing. I'm asking you the question now because I want to control the conversation, but I want the answers to come out of your mouth. Why? Because I can't tell you how to think, but once you say it because you've thought it, you're more convinced and I can get more buy-in. This is the subtle art of question asking that people don't get. If I ask you the questions and put you on the spot, you start giving me the answers that I already have in my head, but I'm guiding you to the answer of where I want you to arrive. And I want you to arrive at the answer, we need to change. And you go, yeah, but Victor, why do we have to do it now? I said, why is now a bad time? Now you have to give me answers. Do you see? I mean, this is sometimes in management what we don't think about. That the power of asking questions, not telling our salespeople, not telling our employees what to do, the power of asking questions gets people to buy into the vision, not because I told them, but because they're coming to the conclusion themselves. Does that make sense? Because I think that's deep, man. That could just be me. You tell me if that makes sense, if that sounds... Anyway, where are we at with the questions? Saw the gray elephant coming before you started. Well, I know you did, Ed, right? Let me see. You can see what Ed's saying. Again, I love when Ed jumps on board, man. Use it frequently. Stole it from you in our first season together 7 years ago. Pure gold. That's how long I've been using that because it's a great illustration. I also have a new one, Ed, where I get people to arrive at the 10 of hearts with a deck of cards. So anyway, upgrading my game once in a while. So thank you, man. Thank you for stopping by. Powerful response, Victor. I need to brainstorm on developing powerful questions. Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? Because you know that saying about the average salesperson practices what to say, Krishnan, but the best salespeople practice what to ask, because in asking, you're controlling the flow of the conversation. You're guiding them. It's almost like, again, you're doing this to their brain by asking questions. So, and again, I emphasize the challenger sale because one of the things they talk about is take control of the conversation. How do you do that? Not by bullying people, not by bullying the customer, but by asking questions that makes the customer go, huh, I didn't think about that. Well, let me give that some thought, because that's when you know you're having a real conversation. We got one here from Ida. How to review and update with your customer after the first meeting. Oh, what a good question, Ida. I think I like this one. So I think I understand you. So how to review and update with your customer after the first meeting. So again, I forgot which session I did on live, but I'm going to give you the short version of what I talked about. I said before any meeting with the customer, before any meeting with a customer, you're going to start here. And what I want you to do is I want you to know where you want to land. In other words, I need you to know before you even go to the meeting, what are you going to ask? You're going to start the conversation here. What are you going to ask when you get to point B? That's the key. In other words, what's your ask, right? Or if you're not asking, you're giving something like information. What are 3 things you want them to walk away with, to remember? Now, if I know this already, then I can pre-plan my presentation. So by the time I get here, I'm ready to ask for whatever I want to ask for. Or if I want them to remember 3 things, well, I've built this into the presentation so they remember these 3 things. And at the end of the meeting, I would simply say, based on our conversation, these are the 3 things I want you to take away. So that's how I usually do it. I don't know if that answers your question. So and then you said how to review and update your customer after the first meeting. I don't know if you're in the meeting or then you're following up. But here's the thing, Ida, if you're meeting with them, keep in mind that sometimes that's the only shot you're going to get at closing that deal. And by closing the deal, I don't mean sometimes closing it with a contract. Sometimes it means advancing it to the next stage, right? And so I really want to urge you to try to close the deal there or advance the sale there. So hopefully I answered your question. Let me know if I didn't. Mia says, wow, that's deep. All right, cool. Ask the right question is brilliant. Item means, I mean upgrading with them after your first introduction. Still help me out with that one, Ida. Have you sold them something in already or not? Just help me with that and I'll answer your question, okay? Just a little more elaboration. A little more. Jim S., then you is never understood your clients. I don't understand that one, Raj. Okay, that's your conversation with Jim, so I'll let that alone. Melissa here. Let me see. Let me clear that screen for you. Sometimes our potential customers want the information fast without having you ask too many questions. They're so impatient. Suggestions. That's a really good one. But I think you're looking at this wrong, Melissa. By the way, it's a valid question, right? Because sometimes, so I had one of my coaching clients today who runs, is a dentist, right? General practitioner, runs a dentist. And people call him up and just basically say, I want to do this, get my teeth fixed, get something fixed. How much? Right? Because that's usually what our customers do. And so remember, your job is to take control of the conversation. Now, let's handle it several ways because I know where you're going. Sometimes a customer is impatient. They want pricing. Let's go there, right? So one of the strategies I always use that works like a champ, but you got to be confident in how you use it. When somebody calls me and says, Victor, how much does X cost? Let's say you're a web developer, right? That's your handle right there. So let's say you're a web developer and somebody calls you up and says, well, I said, I want you to build a website where we just started our company. We're launching a new product. How much does it cost to build a website? Good question, right? And then they want the price right away. Don't ask me a lot of questions. But what you have to do is give them a little and then you pull them in. Here's how you do it. All right, Melissa, here's how I would say, Mr. Customer, I said, we can build a website. I'm making numbers up here for as low as $500 all the way up to, let's say, $3,500. And we can probably do it between 1 day and maybe 2 weeks. In order for me to understand where you fit in this frame, let me ask you, do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions? And what you've done, Melissa, is because you've given them a range of pricing and time frame, this part of the brain, that amygdala, that alarming part of the brain that just gets all anxious, is now more calm because now you have the power. You took control of the conversation by giving them a little bit of information, but you didn't really give them any information. You gave them a range of both money and time, but you didn't give them anything. Sometimes I say this, by the way, it could be between $500 and $3,500, and we could deliver it in a week or two. And I know what you're thinking, that you'd rather be closer to $500 in 1 week. Is that right, Mr. Customer? And they're probably going to say, yes, I'd like to be closer to the $500. Well, do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions so I can see where you're at? And then we can have another discussion. And most people will simply agree. Let me know if you dig that one, but that's how I control the conversation. By the way, everyone, there's only one country with a D in Europe. Thank you, Todd. You're too funny, man. Anyway, some sarcasm going on, so I'm going to skip the sarcasm piece. In the medical industry, how do I build a relationship around a physician who has existing relationship with another sales rep? So, Eric, in your industry, everybody's, I want you to first put yourself in that physician's, shoes, right? Or in his garment, right? His lab coat. And what happens is he's got salespeople like you coming in and out every day, right? Or at least calling him every day. Can you imagine how many calls these physicians get to actually be sold? They don't want to do it. They got patients and they're being pushed back. So what I would do is I would develop a rhythm, a cadence. And by the way, always a reminder, right here in the Sales Velocity Academy, I have like the predictable prospecting system is probably one of the best ones when it comes to kind of creating relationships. Because I always say, when we're trying to meet with a physician for the first time, keep in mind that they meet with a lot of people. So my script would have that in there. Mr. Physician, I know that you're meeting with a lot of people, and the last thing you want to do is to listen to another salesman and change products. But insert the script. And then have your cadence where you reach out. So by cadence, I mean I would reach out every 2 weeks or every month, whatever you think the cadence should be. But I'm always trying to communicate and contact with them. If they're good physicians, if I have a specific set, I will connect with them on LinkedIn. Why? Because when I get up on LinkedIn with them, what I'll try to do is connect with them, not try to sell them, connect and engage with them. If I see that they're posting something, I'll comment on their post. If I see that they shared an article, I'll comment on the article. I'll like their stuff. And I'll do this for like 30 days. And after a while, they get to know who you are. And then that begins the interaction right there. I don't know if I'm helping you because it's such a big question, Eric. And there's so many ways to do that. But I think the first thing to do is really understand where they're coming from, man. They're meeting with a lot of people, man. Deutschland, okay, you guys are still arguing about that. Can we let the country thing go? I think we all got the point there, right? All right, so let's let that go. I work in medical devices as sales, very hands-on experience, but not allowed into hospitals. I can't help you there. I just said yes, so I assumed something was right. What if clients lie? Shock. By the way, if a client is lying to you, there's several things wrong with this thing. One is that, first of all, they don't respect you because they're lying to you. Keep that one in mind. The other thing could be is that they're afraid of you because you're too intimidating, right? And the third may be they simply don't want to tell you the truth because they don't want to offend you or hurt you. So keep in mind that one of the things I always recommend is being direct. Like when somebody says, why don't you come back next quarter and we'll revisit that, right? All heard that, right? That once you come back next quarter and maybe I'll have a budget for it. And so what I always suggest is saying things like this. Mr. Customer, when somebody tells me come back next quarter, it's usually for one of two reasons. One, you're really not interested and you don't want to tell me that because you're just a nice guy. Or you're really interested and you do want me to come back. Which one is it? And you'll be amazed how they'll be very honest with you. Say, look, I'm just not interested in the product. Great. Now I'm not wasting my time. So in my courses, I have, several ways to handle that so you can get the truth out of people very quickly. Brian says, Victor, how are you this evening? Well, thank you for asking me. Brian, I'm doing good, man. Still love your Orbison look, man. So all is good on this side. Hanging out with you guys is always a pleasure, man. So I dig this, man. So Krishnan, again, what should be the process of an effective feedback mechanism, especially in cases of lost deals in B2C? The process of the effective feedback mechanism to who? To you. In other words, you want to find out why you lost a deal. That's the only feedback mechanism I could think of. If you lost a deal, one of the things I would do is stop selling. So for example, you say, Victor, I'm just simply not interested. I said, fine. Kristen, you know what? I said, can I ask you a question? I'm not selling you anymore. I understand you don't want to buy. That's fine. And then I would say, could you do me a favor? And by the way, when you say, could you do me a favor? Or can I ask a favor? Most people are going to say, yes. He said, because they feel guilty already. They're not going to buy from you, so they're willing to do you a favor. He says, can you tell me what you don't like about our product or why you said no? I'm not trying to sell you. I'm just trying to understand. And what you can do is grab that information and use it for your next presentation. But you have to be that open with the person. Say, I've stopped selling. And you can't betray that. So once you stop selling and they start being honest with you why they don't want it, you can't say, you can't, like, we do have that, we can still do it. You got to stop selling. And you'll be amazed at how much people will give you if you're just that honest with them. So hopefully that helps a little bit. After selling, following up with your customers. Again, different strategies. The predictable prospecting system, that one right there, you should check it out. It's a really good way of following up with your customers. So the greatest ever, trying to sell beds for a mattress. Trying to sell beds for a mattress company when people don't ever want to lay on the beds. And you got to try to make them, and people are cheap. That's a big problem right there. That's too much to handle for one, man. First of all, and I'll go back to the last question about when customers lie to you. Another reason might be you're targeting the wrong people. If you're targeting the wrong people, they're not going to buy, right? We bought a sleeper mattress. One of those Sleep Number mattress beds was like $2,000, some crazy number like that. And so again, we were the right customers. And you know what? I wanted to lay on that thing because if I'm going to spend that much money, I want to know how this thing feels and how playing with the buttons was going to work. So when somebody comes in and they don't want to even lay on the bed, you have to ask them, well, why are you here? I mean, you don't ask it that way, but why are they there? Because anybody who wants to buy a bed is going to lay on it. So I don't understand that one, but again, maybe you're just selling to the wrong people. Could be. I know it's a bad answer, but not a complete answer, but that's the best I can do, man. Michael Moore, my man Michael Moore. That's a pool guy right there. That's a great salesman. He's in my new book, the upselling book. So Michael, when demand is at an all-time high, do you like a price increase model to garner better margins, which has potential to decrease sales units but increase? So I know why you're asking this question, Michael Moore, because the pool industry, and this I could be wrong with your business, but I think I'm right. Right now, during this pandemic, people are making interesting decisions. One of the most interesting decisions is, since they can't go on vacation, what they're doing is investing in their homes, and specifically in this case, Michael Moore's business, pools. So the pool business right now is literally on fire. Like literally on fire. About a month and a half ago, we did a webinar, Michael. You probably know this, with Paramount. And I think there's a company out in Arizona that basically had to take their ads down because they just can't keep up with the demand for these pools. The question is, would I bump my margins up a little bit? Yeah, but I would tie them to time frames. That's how I would do it, right? If they want it sooner, I would increase the money there, but I would actually increase. Now's the time to actually, the question you're asking me, should I raise my prices when demand is high? The answer is, economically speaking, absolutely. Don't gouge, though, is a big difference, right? But I think you'll find your price points. Because what happens is, right now, you're probably letting business go. The other thing you can do is, again, we talked about upselling. I'm sure there's a lot of upsell opportunities there. But I think I would raise my prices a little bit because I've seen that happen. I've seen it happen to me. We just had our floors done. We had wooden floors put in. And I think I paid about a 5 to 10% premium because we couldn't find people to do it. Because everybody's investing in their house. So I got no problem with adding money. Michael says, obviously production stays in the same and it's unable to increase in this mode. I know. I mean, now's the time, because remember, there's a time when the pool business was what? Down, and you were losing money. So why not make money? A little bit of money. Just don't gouge, Think about when there's a hurricane coming and people sell water, it's okay to raise the prices a little bit. People can tolerate that because of supply and demand. What they can't tolerate is when you gouge people and make it really ridiculous. But you'll lose business anyway. Anyway, good seeing you, man. E-Box Tenders. We have a new cloud-based software. We have offered it for free for 3 months, which they agreed and now use. At the end of 3 months, how do you transition them to pay? Interesting, because most people would try to get the credit card up front, right? That's why you saw this. One is that you try to get the credit card up front. I know you don't like that strategy. The other one is, and I think it's an interesting strategy, is you make it an exceptionally low fee, like $2 or $3 or $5 a month. And then after the 3rd month, it automatically kicks in. That's how I would do it. Because the thing is, once you do it, you got to go back. And remember, they've used your service, so the thrill of it is kind of dampened a little bit. So I would have charged something up front that's very minimal and not giving it away for free. And so that's why I would have done it, because I think it's very hard, once I've used something for 3 months, unless it becomes a dire necessity. For example, I use Dropbox, and I believe I used the first month for free. But with Dropbox, they put their hooks in me, because once I started uploading stuff into the files and folders, well, if I stopped it, I would lose all that investment in time and effort to put all that stuff in there. If it's just a basic subscription service and they haven't invested any data, then you're not going to get that close. But let's say it is a cloud-based software where they had to invest data, right? In other words, put information in, and they loaded it, then I think they would be very likely to pay. So I got to assume that they're not loading content, because they're not loading content. They go, yeah, it's nice, great, I could use this, but maybe not now. So I would have put something at the front end. The question is, why would you give it away for free for 3 months? That would make me suspicious already. And then 3 months from now, my needs could have changed. And so that becomes a very tough sale, man. That's interesting, though. That's an interesting one. To me, that's a tough sale, man. That is a real tough sale. Sorry, man. I know you wanted more of an optimistic answer, but I would just charge them up front, even if it's a minimal charge, like $2.99, $5.99. I don't know what the price points are, but I would charge them something, because remember the rule of commitment, right? And consistency. That if I commit to something in a small way, then I'm going to do it in a large way. If you remember the book by Dr. Robert Cialdini, he wrote the book Influence, and in there he talked about how they tried to get people to put signs like, on their windows, and they wouldn't do it, and so, or front lawn rather. And so what they did is they asked for a small commitment first, which could you just put this small little sign on your window, and people agreed because it was a small sign, not a big deal, small commitment. And then they came back a month or 2 months later and they said, would you mind putting this sign in your front yard? And the majority of people who agreed to the small sign actually put the big sign up. So check out Robert Cialdini's Influence to read more on that. So it's an interesting proposition. That's why I say you got to charge them a little bit up front to get that commitment going. I work in medical sales, says Kylie Bailey. Sales, we are not allowed in our hospitals as of now. Any advice on differentiating ourselves through email? Are you using, you're the best, thank you. By the way, are you using, I had a program called No Touch Selling, which is how to sell at a social distance. And one of the things I talk about is, first of all, how do you get people, email is one thing, but one of the tools that you can use with email, I'm going to still recommend you try to get them on a conference call like this. But, and by the way, there are different programs, but I like to use this one right here called Loom. And Loom allows you to, let's say, scroll, you can actually show them anything on your screen and then hit the record button and it'll record your face. Or you can just get in front of your webcam and send a personal video. So anything you can do to engage them, let them see who you are. But again, if you're part of the academy, check out the No Touch Selling program I put together. It's a full program on how to control everything from even how this frame looks, how to use Loom and other programs, how to communicate, what to look for visually when you're talking to somebody to see if they're with you or not. So my suggestion to you is beyond email, try to get the video component going, try to get them on a chat, and maybe try to get them on a video conference call. That would be great. I think that's a good way. Chad says, thank you very much. So hopefully that helped. Thank you for that. That hit the spot? Excellent. Yeah. So just frame it for them. Frame the pricing for them. And then says, let's see, get rid of that. Ida, that's good. Should enter your sales. Yeah, you should go into the Sales Velocity Academy. And Ida, just keep in mind that my philosophy is when you join the Sales Velocity Academy, I don't want you to stay on there, okay? I want you to go in there, grab what you need, so to speak, and then if it's a month or 2 months or 3, whatever it is, then quit and then leave. Because that's what I want you to do. So I don't get offended when people say, I want to stop my subscription. I'm like, great. As long as you got what you needed, go in there, get what you need, and get out. Okay? That's when I know it's been successful. Can't eat hope. That's correct. One bite at a time, man. Thanks, Victor. This is so helpful. I appreciate it. I look forward to your Sales Velocity Academy. Check it out. Cool. It's a really good program. I think I'm going to start doing a private just for my Sales Velocity Academy members. I'm going to try to do a little private session so I can kind of give you more attention. So coming soon. If you have a salesperson that always sells on discounts, how do you correct that behavior? You beat them. Yeah, you beat them. No, you don't. You don't. So if they have that behavior, first of all, it's a bad behavior. Excuse me. Not a beer, water, lime. I just like to emphasize that. So Jenna, when somebody's doing discounting, it's because they haven't learned how to really sell. Now, I'm not saying that we don't discount. I discount when I have to, but I always remind myself that discount is the exception, not the rule. So if you have somebody who's always discounting, means is that they haven't been trained on how to counteract, or as I put it, have countermeasures for discounting. So for example, and I'm not trying to push this all the time, but there is a program in there where I talk about discounting countermeasures, things you can do to push back on the discounting. Because there's times where you have to discount, but let's get something in it. So that would be the first thing. Second, so first thing is maybe they're not trained. They don't know what to say or how to push back. 2, they could be insecure about the product they're actually selling, because when people believe in what they're selling, they'll sell it with a certain attitude. You can just kind of feel it, right? Because like, why should I discount something that's going to help you grow your business? Makes no sense to me. That's my attitude, right? And so it could be one of those two things. One is they don't know how to do it, counteract that, or they don't know the value of their product and they don't know how to position that value. So it could be something in their presentation. And because they sound like everybody else, would be the third thing. Because they sound like everybody else, at the end of the day, the customer says, well, he said the same thing, she said the same thing. What's the difference? Price. And they go straight to price. And then if I can wrap it up in a bow, remember, in today's market, the majority of products we sell or services are commodity products. What does that mean? The products are almost all the same. Services are almost all the same. Sales trainer. I mean, dime a dozen, right? Right? I hate to say it about my own profession, but we're kind of a dime a dozen. But what differentiates me from others is just the way I deliver the material and the way I train. The way, in today's market, your product or service are all the same, but what matters is, and I've said this before and I'll keep saying this, is that you, the salesperson, are now the differentiator. It's how you present the product, how you connect with the client that makes a difference. And people will pay a little more. Jenna, you've paid a little more for something you know you could have gotten cheaper elsewhere. Why? Because I trusted that person more. I believed in that person more. I connected with that person. We've all done it. So I would say that your salesperson is not connecting, or they're scared of selling, or they're by scared of selling, they don't know how to push back, or third, again, they don't understand the value. So I would look at the presentation and see what's what. LinkedIn loads of expats, I think, right? Okay. Appreciate the golden nuggets, Victor, as always. When you mention software engineers, where would you draw the line between sales and pre-sales? Where would I draw the line between sales and pre-sales? Give me a little more on that, Jay. I think I know what you mean, but I'll be guessing. So give me some more on that. Add something. Put a top spin on that. Any advice on standing out through email? You rock. Kyle again. What I would do, Kyle, is try video, man. Try video. There's a lot of great books out there that talk about, you know, what to put in the subject line and things of that nature. I think you have to just become very creative with your emails. So subject line obviously is very important. But again, why not try, instead of trying to be clever all the time, why not try to find ways to connect with them before you send them the email? And again, it could be online, via LinkedIn, via Facebook. I would just put in that little extra effort, so when I do send the email, there it is. There's so many books on clever ways to reach out to people, but I think at the end of the day, if you can do like a 30-second video with your pitch, I think that'd be perfect. Why don't you try the 30-second pitch and tell me how that works for you? Cool? All right. Web developer Melissa's back. I like to stop selling and ask why. We've never done that. We'll try that today. Simply awesome. Yeah. It's amazing because even though you lost that customer, Melissa, the gold they could give you will help you polish your next presentation and maybe give you some insight, right? Thanks, Victor. Your response is spot on. Thank you. Appreciate it. Sheltering in, Miko, Eminem, cool. Got that. What are your thoughts on leaving voicemails short and sweet? I love leaving voicemails short and sweet. In the programs I talk about, you've got to have a value message. Don't guess. Make sure you know what you're going to leave. What's my first voicemail when I try to call you? When I call you 2 weeks later, what voicemail is it? I should know how to do it automatically. Third voicemail and so forth. So, but again, each of these voicemails have to have some insight. Insight is information beyond the obvious. Something that makes you go, huh, I didn't know that. I didn't think about that. That's what the voicemails need to contain. Some real powerful insights, because that's what people really want. Your bed is worth the same as your old Volvo. Painfully so, man. Painfully so. Thank you for that reminder, Herb. You are a good friend of mine automatically. You're keeping up with me, man. So, by the way, he's messing with me because I have a 20-year-old Volvo. So, yeah, he's about right. But my Volvo is awesome. On the LinkedIn, how do you go about connecting to someone who knows you are trying to sell them? You're killing me with this one, Todd. That's the problem. This is almost like, are you trying to trick me here? If they know you're trying to sell them, it's because you haven't connected with them. Does that make sense? If people know that you're trying to sell them, it's because you haven't connected with them. I'm not saying, so let me back up. When I'm reaching out to somebody, I'm going to try to really engage that person for 30 days. In your case, I don't know, depending on the sales cycle, it might be 60 days. You pick whatever time frame you're comfortable with. And little by little, you have to find ways to kind of maneuver your way in. And if you're going to tell them something, if you're going to connect with them, I would ask them something specifically. For example, I sell a CRM system. Right? Let's just say that's what I sell, a CRM system. I'm reaching out to a couple of people who are VP of sales, right? VP of sales. I sell a CRM system. I know they have a CRM system. Then instead of trying to sell them something, I would follow them, try to figure out what system they use based on their post, and if they talk about it. Let's say they don't talk about CRM systems. Because I created this relationship, I responded to their post. I hit the like button. I asked them a question about their post, the article. I shared an article with them. And then somewhere in there I would ask, by the way, Todd, what CRM are you currently using? Notice that's a straight question. What CRM are you currently using? And if I've established that connection, that relationship, most people go, this is what we currently use. And then that begins, you know what I mean? I try to find the way in. Does that help a little bit? But if they know you're trying to sell them, that means you're going in too quick. RV sales are through the roof. Man, I know. Current in-stock RVs are low, which is causing the price to buy higher. Michael Moore, there's your answer. I spoke to the RV industry 2 or 3 times. There's a company here in Atlanta, Georgia, great company called, let me know if you heard of Stag Parkway. So yeah, I've helped people even sell RVs, man. By the way, the weirdest thing I've helped people sell, I spoke at the International Cemetery Cremation Funeral Association. Yeah, I helped them too, right? Pre-need and post-need. Very interesting. When the sun is shining, make hay with an A. Angelo, family. My company decided to go through with a price increase, even with this pandemic. How do you tell your customers that there is a price increase? What's the product? Is that the banking services? Or give me more on that one. Tell me what it is, what you're selling. Spot on, as always. Thanks for your insight. Michael Moore, man. Look him up, man, if you're looking for a pool. Great dude. We had a great time down in, we did a sales training in Guatemala. Man, that was great. That was fantastic, man. Good to hear from you, man. I own an emergency water damage business. We rely on plumbers for referrals. I love that. The issue I have is that other companies pay them for leads. I don't want to do this because you win dollars, then you lose money. So how do I build enough value to draw them away from my competition? Should I offer referral cash? I think in this case, this is probably one of the weird cases where I would actually offer them something. Because remember, I mean, why give you the business? Now, the other thing that you got to keep in mind is that, if your service is superior to everybody else's, they also want to maintain their reputation, right? So, but let's assume that the other people offer the same service, the exact same service, then it is natural for them to want you to give them a referral system, right? So I would look at it from two perspectives, Patrick. You tell me if you think I'm wrong. One is I would do a referral system to them. I know I'm covering myself up and you can't see me, right? I would do a referral system to them, right? Where I will pay you per referral, right? Whatever that percentage is or whatever that flat number is. You figure out what the deal is. But what if you in turn turned around and started sending them referrals, right? Because now if you're sending them referrals, they're like, well, because nobody sends them referrals. And maybe that's where you can differentiate yourself a little bit. Now, if you're sending me referrals, I'm going to feel guilty giving my business to somebody else. I'd rather work with you. So my question is, do you have those two things in place? Yes, I would do a referral system to match somebody else's, right? But I would also figure out, how do I refer business to them? I've done that in the past, where if I wanted to lock in a distributor, right, that was actually selling other people's products, I would send him business because I knew that the law of reciprocity, I do this for you, you do that for me, kicked in, and I got more business that way. So give that some thought. Tell me what you think. JM says, how do you sell pools? Easily, man. Love that book. All right, cool. I know that was a short answer, but dude, that's another conversation on selling pools. Greatest ever. I am in the mattress business. I think we talked about it. I can give you a bunch of solutions on how to sell better sleep. There you go. Dr. Todd. Persuasion also, my Janice. 3 a.m. in the UK, so time for bed. Thanks for this. Is there a replay? Dave, yes, there is. If you're still up, yes, there is, man. Yes, there is. Yeah, like I said, if they use it for 3 months free, it's just tough. I mean, I think it's better to try to get them to buy something early. You know what I mean? Something small, and then after 3 months, the card automatically kicks in. So I think that's the way to do it. Victor Tan, my man, you were kind of quiet. For today's selling scenario, clients are more interested how we can help them instead of how big our company is. Yeah, that really is. They want to know how can you help them, and that's exactly what they want. That's exactly it. Is it still important to add our company profile at the beginning of or during our presentation phase to build credibility, or just leave it at the end of the presentation? I always put it in the middle of the presentation, Victor. I did a live stream about the hero story. Look that one up. And what you want to do is, if you start out talking about yourself, people are not going to pay attention. What you want to do is find a place in the presentation where you've identified the customer's problem. Mr. Customer, I understand what you're going through. Here are the challenges you're facing, A, B, C, D. And here's what we can offer. Now you move into a solution phase. And then somewhere in the solution phase, then you have to kind of establish your credibility that you can help them solve their problem. So begin with their problems, move towards your solution, and then I would talk about how my company has done this to build that credibility. So I would put it somewhere, if I were to guess, 3/4 of the way through a presentation. But again, check out the Hero live cast. It was really good one, man. Rajiv, man, thank you. You're very welcome, sir. Web developer. Again, back, Melissa. We sell almost exclusively on chat. It's been so much easier to manage and follow up via email. Converting a lot of training to chat to work for us has been really effective, very inspiring. Wow, thank you for sharing. That is really cool. I got to read that again because that's really, we sell almost exclusively on chat. Isn't that funny how people are just like feeling comfortable doing that? It's been so much easier to manage and follow up versus email. Yes. Converting a lot of training to chat to work for us has been really effective. I love that. Great. Thank you for sharing. That's important because I think people often hear that this doesn't work through chat, virtual conversations, but they do. And I think people are discovering that. I think that's the silver lining, if I can say that in this pandemic, it's like we rediscovered the use of technology like video, chat, and things of that nature because now we're forced to use that. And so I think that's so spot on. Thank you for sharing. 100%. Thank you very much. Can't wait to learn more. Thank you, Jen. Appreciate that. Patrick Knapp, let's see what you got. We tried to offer to help take care of accidents they make, like holes in the wall, etc. Anything else I can do? So we try to offer to help take care of. Okay, so if they do something wrong, I mean, that's really good right there. But man, I'm telling you, there's nothing like sending them business. Because keep in mind, their biggest struggle is trying to get business. Like these people you're working with, their biggest struggle is your struggle. They're trying to get business. Is there any way to implement something like that? That'd be kind of cool, right? So anyway, just a thought. But I love that. I love that you do that, though. That's great, Patrick. That's great. Victor, I'm starting a new job in August in a new market with a new company. How do I best market myself as a viable player to garner opportunities in the marketplace? So who do you want to best market yourself to? You got a new product. You're in a new market with a new company. How do I best market myself as a viable player to garner opportunities in the marketplace? Brian, can you help me out? I think you got something else down here. From electrical distributor sales into electrical testing sales, 35 years in the trade. Oh, I get you. So you're shifting industry. Interesting. By the way, the testing sales, that's got to be some great business right there. How do you market yourself? A viable player to garner opportunities. I think you want to position yourself as an expert, what you're telling me, Brian. Is that correct? One of the things I would start doing, I mean, there's so many ways to do this now, especially with social media. First of all, you got to know the players, you got to know the market, you know all this. Remember when we talked about, I don't know if you were here for this one, Brian, we talked about how do you develop business acumen. The first thing is, you need to understand business in general, right? And then you also need to understand the client's business. I'm telling you things you already know, Brian, right? And then the last part is that you have to understand the market. What's going on in the market. So you understand your business, your product and service, understand what your clients are going through, understand the market. I think it's ramping up and getting this type of domain expertise that's going to be your biggest challenge, right? It's how do you ramp up so that when you're talking to somebody, you come across as that person, especially if you're just joining a new part of the industry. So that would be my short answer. Any way you can demonstrate these things is going to be key. Have you considered writing articles? There's something about writing articles like on LinkedIn or wherever you think your people look that position yourself as an expert. And again, one of the things I like about articles, Brian, is that it allows you to clarify your own thinking as you're writing things out. And maybe as you're writing these articles, you can send those articles to people you're trying to target. Just thought I'd share this article with you I just wrote. Love to hear your thoughts. So that may be a way of doing it. So anyway, that's just me brainstorming with you. Voicemails, always leave a message. Yes, always leave a message. Value over price. The red diamond loves you. My man. I don't know what that means. The red diamond loves you, Victor, but if they're showing love, Jim's got to go. I got it, man. Have a great evening. See you Friday Eve. Love it, man. Thanks for all your input, Brian. Thank you very much. I met what would be the main goal for the pre-sales person and just the salesperson? Obviously, get the sale for the latter. So if you're talking about like an SDR, like the sales development rep that does the pre-sale, and then the salesperson that closes in, where's that line? So, I mean, one thing one thing that most people don't consider when they do pre-sales, right? So, the SDR is on this side, SDR or BDR, whatever you want to call them. And then the salesperson's over here knocks it down. So this person's more the inside sales, and this person is the outside sales. And you said, where would you draw the line? Right here, man, I would look at, when I'm drawing lines, and measuring things on like KPIs, right? How would I measure these folks? It's the call to meeting ratio, call to meetings, right? How many meetings do I get? And here, obviously, we measure this guy, the salesperson is meeting to close, right? My question to you is that the big overlap is not only getting the meeting set up, but making sure they actually set up for the meeting. So one of the things I did as a manager, is I tried to find a way to compensate the inside salespeople based on deals closed. And what happened is it created this wonderful synergy right here in the middle, because now the SDR was motivated to really qualify the meeting, and the salesperson was appreciative that the meetings were being actually closed. So I don't know if that answers it, but there it is. Your content is always powerful. Hilesh, thank you very much. Ada, damn right. Most small business entrepreneurs scared to be in LinkedIn because of that, including me. So again, my company distributes, manufactures factory automation components. And let me go back to what they were doing, since I totally forgot what you asked me. Hold on a second. Let me go back. God, I'm scanning back in case you wonder what I'm doing. My company has decided to go through with a price increase even with this pandemic, and you sell manufacturing components. The thing is, the customers, honestly, I don't know why, but I still think it's bad timing for most industries we serve. New player in the market, good insights, chat. Thank you so much. I'm trying to catch up to all these conversations. I got so many coming in. So anyway, in other words, how do you communicate price increase? So what I'm going to do is to give you the short answer, because I can give you a better answer. So I recommend this book called The Expansive Sale. And it's by a guy named Reister. And somebody else. By Reister. The Expansive Sale actually has in there a sequence script of how to approach a customer and tell them about the price increase. And it actually walks you through how you should format your presentation. Maybe I should do this one, just this part in another live stream, but that's a good half hour, 45-minute conversation. But if you really want the answer, that book has it. And by the way, you don't have to read the whole book. Just find that chapter and you'll get your answer, man. Mr. Vic, how about ROI? Always important. Return on investment is always important. Brian's asking exactly what's the reason for the increase. And again, they're going to want to know. But if you could position them with, here's what we've done so far, here's our progress, and then here's what's currently happening, and then drop the price increase on them, again, the book has a good way of sequencing that. Victor says, thank you. Good insight on that. And I'm going to start wrapping this up because I just want to kind of hang out. Victor, do you offer in-person training? I'm in North Carolina. Also, yes, we do try to send business to our plumbers. Love it. Patrick, if you go to my website, not this one, just go to victorantonio.com. I have a coaching program where I do one-on-one, and we meet twice a month for 60 to 90 minutes, and that would be the way to go, man. So, yeah, love to have you on board, man. I'm selling for a few years, big-ticket equipment. I feel like I need to start my sales cycle all over. It's B2B, new sales cycle. I'm in your program. Where would I start? So let me see. I feel like I need to start my sales cycle all over. I'm lost on that one, Joshua, for some reason. It's B2B, new sales cycle. I'm in your program. Where do I start? Can you add a little more flavor to that, Joshua, or at least send me an email and I can guide you to which courses might help you. Let me see. Michael Moore's back in the house. Doubling down on mining referrals is key in industries that are thriving at this time. Demand will increase and referrals will be key in the next 12 to 14 months. A lot of current demand has been pushed forward. I love that, man. That's a great, you're right, man. You're right, Michael, on that one. Great insight, man. Thank you for sharing, man. Excellent. Always appreciate your insight, man. Brian, thank you very much. We're going to get an explanation of the red diamond. The red diamond that represents a certain pest management company. Oh, you are the best. I've learned a ton from you over the past 10 years. That red diamond, my bad. That's an inside joke that this is a large company saying thank you. So, and they're represented by bad diamond. By the way, for Angelo, The Expansive Sale is an excellent book. Brian, you are absolutely right. On that note, folks, we've been out here for a good hour and a half almost. Thank you again. And again, I will be doing Sunday. We will see you.